Welcome to this month's Tailoring of the Month. This month, we're going to be tailoring a handheld form for mobile shipping. So what we're going to be doing specifically is we're going to be taking our Agility shipping software, which is our integration to carriers like FedEx, UPS, and USPS, and we're going to be enabling the shipping process on a handheld device using Agility Form Studio. So currently today, this is only available on the desktop. You can ship through Fulfillment Manager with that integration to UPS, USPS, or FedEx. There's a lot of boxes you need to check and some limitations when taking this to a handheld form. So today we're going to talk about a specific use case and create a tailored handheld form that can do the shipping with those various carriers. This is also going to be used in this month's Learning Lab. So if you have a chance to tune in, if you want to see this form in action, this month we're going to be doing a Learning Lab on all kinds of different ways to ship with Agility Shipping. And we'll specifically use this form in the lab and talk a little bit more about it during that session. So I hope to see you there. All right, so we're going to start by going to Agility Form Studio. That's our FS here. And inside of Agility Form Studio, we would typically create a new project. Now, I know I mention this every session, but if you haven't seen these before, I have a Tailoring of the Month project that I typically use for these sessions. If you're first time in Form Studio, you're going to want to create a new project here. Anytime we create a tailored application, you want to put it in a new project so it doesn't get overwritten and whenever you update your Wisys system. So we would put it in a new project, or in my case, I already have a new project called Tailoring of the Month. So I'm just going to go in there. And now inside of here, we're actually going to start from scratch. So a lot of the time, whenever we create things for our Tailoring of the Month videos or any tailored application in general, we're usually taking a copy of an existing form and making some changes to it. But this time, we're actually going to start with from scratch because there's nothing in particular that this form really builds off of. This is a unique form in and of itself, and we're not going to start from any starting point here. So I'm going to go to Add a Form. And we're going to start with this completely blank form here. So first, I'm going to go ahead and name this. I'm going to call this TOM for Tailoring of the Month, Mobile Ship. And typically, I put the TOM here so I know that I did this for a Tailoring of the Month lab. If you're, a consultant, if you're one of our partners and you're doing this for a customer, I put the customer's name there. Even if you are a customer, I would either put tailored or, your company's name in front of the application so you know what it associates to and it's not a standard out of the box app. And we'll just give it a description here, mobile shipping. All right, so now we have that named. That's a start here. And now I'm going to go ahead and start adding various fields to this. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to start with a text lookup field, and that's going to be for the shipment number. So if you're not familiar with our system, we create shipments from sales orders in SAP, right? So a shipment gives you the ability to group multiple sales orders together, and it gives you a stage in between the sales order and the delivery note where, the items are prepared to fulfill that sales order. They're ready to go out the door, but they haven't yet. They're typically sitting in a staging area waiting for a truck driver to come pick it up. That's what a shipment gives us the ability to do. So in this case, we are looking at these shipments that exist in our system because that's what we're going to want to ship with Wisys. And to give you an example here, if I jump to AE, that's my Agility Explorer, here's what a shipment looks like here. So we have several items on our shipment for this order. It's all ready to go in the system, and that's what we're going to test with today. Now, traditionally, if I wanted to just use the out-of-the-box process for Agility shipping, I would just click the ship button here and I could ship with, one of our defined carriers. This shipment is not set up to go with USPS, so it could go for UPS, FedEx, or a standard TL or truckload shipment. But we're not going to do that this time. So this is all prepared, ready to go. Going to jump back over to Form Studio here. And I'm going to start by naming this field. So whenever I have a text field, I always put TXT in front of it. It's important to do that for troubleshooting purposes. So if we look at the XML of this form, we know, what that specific field is. So I'm going to call that text shipment. And then we're just going to call it shipment. And I chose a lookup field because we want to query the system to see all the existing shipments we have. So now I'm going to go down to my lookup SQL and I'm going to define some SQL for it. So here I'm going to be querying the Wisys tables. If you're not familiar, we have a few of our own tables that we bring to your SAP system. While most of the time we use the standard SAP tables, in some cases we have our own to expand on SAP's functionality. So I'm just going to drop in a query that I have pre-prepared here. And this is going to be my lookup. So basically, I'm just going to be looking at shipment numbers where the status is not shipped. So, those shipments have not been shipped yet. They exist in the system. And I'm doing that from our Wisys package shipment table. And then we want to select a return field. That's the field that's going to show in the actual field when we choose something from this list. And that's going to be our shipment number. All right, so we have our shipment field here. Go ahead and save. I'm gonna just, periodically be sure to save throughout the process here to make sure that everything is getting updated and I don't lose any of my progress. That's a good standard way to go about these things. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add my next field. Now this case, I'm gonna use a combo box. So because Agility Shipping only works with 4 carriers, we don't want to give the user the ability to enter free text here or scan or anything like that, because they're typically not going to be scanning a barcode with the carrier name. We want to give them a defined list that shows the 4 carriers that are available, allows them to pick one of those carriers, and simplifies the process. So first, again, this is a text field, even though it's a combo box. So I'm going to call it text carrier, name it carrier. Then I'm going to want to go down and define my list here. I could use SQL. I could just define some items. That's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to hard code this in because we know the options. LTL, UPS, FedEx, and USPS. Those are my options there. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now my list is defined, but one thing I want to mention really quickly here is if I save this and simulate, you'll notice that my carriers have a letter in front of them. That's how it's going to behave standard, right? If you don't make a change to this. If you don't want that, which in this case we don't because it would pass, USPS as U or UPS as U, right? Or FedEx as F. We don't want that, so we want to change that is mnemonic off. We want to put that to false so that that lettering is going to go away. And now if we simulate here again, there we go. No U in front of it, right? So pretty simple there. We hard-coded a list with all the carriers available. We have our shipments pulling from a query of shipments in the system. Now we're going to add 2 more fields here. So this is why I say, this is kind of a per use basis and every customer is going to be different with this. There's a lot of different fields in our shipment tables that you can assign and different pieces of information that you can pass to FedEx and UPS and USPS. And it really depends on what's important and what's crucial to the process. So in this case, we're going to say that, our customer, they have the ability to go into Fulfillment Manager and enter in information, before this ships, right? So we're going to say that they have basically every piece of information they need except for pro number and trailer number, and they get that information whenever the driver actually shows up. So we're going to add 2 more text fields here. One is going to be for pro number. So I'm going to call that txt prono. All right. And the other is going to be for trailer number. All right, and then we do actually want to go in and enable these as well so that the user can enter information in there. All right, so both of them enabled is now set to true. They can enter information to those fields. We have our carrier list, and we have our shipments pulling from a SQL query that's going to show them all the shipments they have in the Wisys system. So now we have the various fields set up where they're going to want to enter information. But you'll notice here, of course, I have a large blank space in the middle of the screen. Let's say the customer in this case doesn't like that. They want this form to feel a little more filled out. So I'm just going to add a grid to this form that's going to show me a list of all the packages that are on this shipment. So I know what all is going out with the driver. If the driver says, hey, what packages are supposed to be going on this, I have it right there on the screen and I can quickly list it off to them. So I'm going to add a grid here. And then in this grid, we're going to go in and add grid SQL. First, I'm going to name it. So I'll do grid, and I will call this packages. Grid packages. Go into my grid SQL here. And once again, this isn't a video on query writing, so I have my predefined query I'm just going to drop in. And here, again, I'm looking at my Wisys package table. If you're not familiar with our tables, this is just packages. This would be the header information of every package in the system. I'm going to grab our package number from that package table where the shipment equals our selected shipment. Hit save. All right. And then I want to give myself an error message too. So I could say no packages on shipment. That way, if it errors out and it can't pull any information, I know there's no packages related to that shipment. All right, and now I have my grid ready to go. I'm gonna have to go in and add an action to actually pull information to that grid. So if we look right now, the way this would work is there's nothing refreshing this grid. So I could go through the process here. First I'm searching my shipments, grabbing my most recent. That's the 301 that we're going to actually use. Could pick a carrier. I could enter a pro number. I could enter a trailer number. Nothing ever fills in this grid. We need to add an action to make that happen. So once we can fill in the grid is the moment we've decided what shipment number we're using. So on that shipment field, we're actually going to go ahead and add an action that's going to control our grid here. So we're going to scroll down to this action field and click on these three dots, and it will open our action box here. And we're simply just going to add a grid refresh. All that's going to happen here is when we select a shipment number from that list, it's going to trigger our grid to refresh and query the system to pull back some information. So if I go ahead and simulate again here, there's our grid refresh. There's the packages. If I jump back to our fulfillment manager, 10237 and 10238 are in fact the packages on our shipment here. So that worked successfully. We know shipment 301 is on the list. That's correct. Everything that we need as far as fields is now set up, right? So the way we have this working right now, we have the ability to go in here, pick a shipment number that exists, assign it a carrier to ship with, a pro number, and a trailer number to be attached to that shipment. We have a grid that's going to show all the packages on that shipment, but we have no way to actually do anything at the current moment. So now we need to go in and add a button that's going to have transactions to actually perform a transaction in Wisys and therefore SAP Business One. So we're going to add a button here, and I'm simply going to call this button ship. This is what they're going to press when they want to ship the shipment. So there you go, just says ship, nice and easy here. All right, and then our enabling element is going to be a shipment. They're not going to be able to press this button until they have selected a shipment. And we're going to go in and add some actions now. So our first action, the most important action here, is going to be the action that ships our shipment. So I'm going to go down to my Agility object transactions. Those are our transactions that are pre-built using our objects. I'm going to query here and find PKG ship shipment 2 is what we want. Here it is. And this is the same object transaction that is used from Fulfillment Manager. We're just taking it and putting it inside of a handheld application. For those of you that don't know, any transactions that you use on the desktop can be used on the handheld, or vice versa. Anything that's used on the handheld can be used on the desktop. All of these objects are easily transferable from one to the other. So if you like our goods receipt PO form on the handheld and you want to take that to the desktop for whatever reason, you can do that. If you like shipping from Fulfillment Manager on the desktop and you want to take that to the handheld, you can do that. So now we just need to fill in the necessary information here. Not everything has to be filled in this case. First, we of course need a shipment to tell the system, hey, this is what we're trying to ship. And I notice here that I have made a mistake. So first, I'm going to give this an error message so that I can save it. We're going to come back. My shipment field needs to be numeric because it's a shipment. Now I'm going to select my @text shipment. Then I need to give it a username. Now this is just going to be the current username. You want to make sure that's what you're using because it's going to capture the actual username and pass it based on the user from Wisys that's using the form. And of course, if you just put something random in here for username, right? If I just put Chase, but my username is manager, then it's going to fail because manager has access to ship, Chase does not. So here I'm going to select current username. Then our ship method is going to be that carrier field. And we aren't worried about returning a shipment cost or clearing the tree at this time. And then as you saw me do earlier, I'm just going to select error message here, and that's going to pass back a system error message if the form does in fact error out. So now I'm passing in the shipment number, who's shipping so that the system can check and make sure they have access to ship from our product. And then I'm also going to pass in the carrier that we choose from that drop-down list. Now I need to go over to object properties, and there's a couple of things I need to set by default here. So based on how this would work on the desktop, we would pull up some shipping prompts when you go to ship. We need to set that to be bypassed because you cannot do that here on the handheld form. So you'll notice there's no, true or false there in the list. So I need to go add a constant Boolean field so that I can bypass this. So I'm going to hit OK, save my progress thus far. Going to go in here to constants, and we're going to add a new one. It's going to be Boolean. Name is going to be true. And our value is just going to be true. That's all we need. We don't need a false one because we're going to set several bypass fields to true here. So I'm going to go back into my action, back over to object properties. We need to bypass our shipping prompts because that can happen on the desktop, not on the handheld. So we're going to put that to true. Same thing, we're going to bypass our BOL print, set that to true. And we're going to bypass our BLL screen that pops up and allows the user to add additional information on the desktop. Again, this cannot happen on the handheld, so we're going to go to true there. Now, when I bypass the BOL print, that's a specific, way that it works, right? The way that it's going to print. I could still add in a BOL printing action here if I want to later, but inside of this transaction, we need to bypass the automatic BOL print, and we can talk about adding the action here later. All right, so now I'm going to hit OK, and this would be ready to go, but I just remembered I have these two extra pieces of information the customer wants entered, pro number and trailer number. So we want to go back into our shipment transaction here, and we want to go ahead and assign those to the correct properties too. So we're going to have our pro number field right into the pro number field here, and our trailer number field right into this trailer number field here. Hit OK. If we open that back up, we'll see all of our changes have saved. We're ready to go now. Everything's been added. We can go ahead and close that there. Save our form. And now I want to do one last thing. This isn't 100% necessary depending on how you want the form to work, but if somebody scans trailer number and then they just hit enter, I want this to automatically ship, right? That would be the intended process. So I'm going to go up to my form settings here, and I'm going to scroll down to my default button, and I'm going to assign that to my ship button, and it's on last item. So after they scan trailer number, if they hit enter, it's going to go ahead and process the ship button there. All right, so now we have our action. This would work right now if we used it, but I want to add a couple more couple more just additional functionalities here, right? So the customer says to me that they want to add a print of the actual shipping label, right? So I can go down in here to my ship button, my actions here, print document. We're going to grab our agility package label. This case, this is the actual label we'll get back from, say for our test, we'll ship with UPS. So this is the label UPS is going to actually give us back to put on the package. So that's coming directly from the carrier. We just need to pass it our shipment number here and finish. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a clear to the form as well. So once we're done, once this shipment is shipped, we of course want to clear everything. So we're going to add a clear form. This will clear the entirety of the form. So it'll clear our trailer number, pro number, carrier, and shipment fields. Those will all be blank when we're done. But one last thing, that doesn't clear the grid. We'll want to refresh our grid query again. And in that case, the grid query is going to look and say, oh, shipment number is now blank because it's been cleared. So the grid is going to refresh to be blank again. So now the cosmetics are done. We have a label ready to print out right after we ship our shipment. The grid will clear, the fields will clear, and we'll be ready to go ahead and start and move on to another shipment. So now I save that. Let's go ahead and test this form out. So first off, again, we're going to be using shipment number 301. We have 2 packages on it. We're going to make sure that that ships. But then also, if we take a look, that's for sales order 1130 here in SAP. So we're also going to want to make sure that we have a sales order delivery created in the relationship map. So we have our SAP here, 1130. If we go back, order number 1130 on our shipment 301. Now we can go ahead and ship shipment 301. So I'm going to simulate here. So here's my TOM mobile ship form. I'm going to pick shipment number 301. I could also scan it in. And, of course, this is not a finished product here. There's some more things you'd want to add, but we would probably like to add a validation. Users would have the ability to scan into this field instead of just pick from the list. So you'd probably want to add a validation there just to validate against the system and make sure that shipment that they scan in is open, just the same way that we're, limiting the shipments they can pick from the list to only be open shipments. We'd also want them to only be able to scan open shipments as well. Then I'm going to grab my carrier. And again, this is the big piece of, how this works, right? We need to make sure we have the correct carrier names being passed. That's why I hard coded them into the list. If there's one thing you take away from this session on how you can ship from a mobile device, it's, make sure you have the carrier name correct and then pass that carrier name into that shipment, that PKG shipment to object, right? So I'm going to go UPS. Like I said, let's just try one of our actual carriers here. So we'll ship UPS and we'll get a label back from UPS as well. I'm going to give it a pro number and I'm going to give it a trailer number. And then when I hit enter here, it's going to go ahead and ship the shipment. It'll take a minute here because it's talking to UPS and it's going to actually get that shipping label from UPS's API. Let's print it to the screen. There we go. There's my shipment label coming directly from UPS. And now my shipment has been cleared. Looks like our grid didn't refresh. And oh, our grid did refresh, but I think it's just got every package in the system on here now. So I'd have to play with that a little bit to get that to clear the whole way out, because now we just don't have a filter on it, right? So before it was bringing back packages where the shipment number was the shipment number. Now in this case, it's bringing every package because we have no shipment number. But obviously there's some more cleaning up that we could do with this form, but the bones are there, the ground is laid, and this form is working, right? We shipped a shipment with Agility Shipping using our UPS integration. We got that label back from UPS. We actually shipped the product. And if we go into Agility and refresh shipment 301, this status will change from new to shipped. And then we will also, in SAP, see our status change to closed, and we can check our relationship map here. We will now have a sales order delivery associated with our sales order here. So there you go. This is a pretty specific tailoring of the month, but similar to some of the ones I've done in the past, I'm going to actually use this in my learning lab so you'll get a little bit more of a feel for, the use case of this application. We'll talk more about it. But this gives you everything you need to know about how do I ship from the handheld. This is a really slimmed down version. There's a lot of details to this. Like I said, I mean, it's going to depend on what types of information the customer needs to pass. If you want that label that you get back from UPS, there's a lot of information you want to make sure you have so it's a complete label. There's a lot of details to this as far as what information you're passing and where you're getting it from. And it's going to look different for every customer. So that's why this is going to probably continue to be a tailoring for the near future unless we provide, an out of the box, very simple version. But this session gives you the tools that you need to, make this work, right? And now once you have it working, you have a label printing, you have the actual shipment happening, then you can go back in and fill in the details of what other information needs to be entered and passed or grabbed from somewhere else and passed. So I hope you got a lot out of the session. This is how you ship with Agility Shipping on a handheld device. A lot of people don't realize it's possible, but it is. And as you can see, it took us less than 30 minutes to put it together. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you in this week's Learning Lab.